Statement of meeting notice. Adequate notice of this meeting was given to the public 48 hours in advance of the date, setting forth the date, time, location, and type of meeting. Notice was sent to the Daily Record, the Observer Tribune, and the Washington Township Clerk, and was posted on the district website at www.wtschools.org. All please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. For President's comments, I wanted to start off by giving an update on the superintendent search. Having conducted first-round interviews with 8 candidates, the Washington Township Board of Ed invited 4 impressive superintendent candidates to meet with us again on October 1st and 2nd for a second round of in-depth interviews. We will be meeting with 3 finalists for a third and final interview round on the evening of October 17th in executive session. We look forward to providing further updates to the community shortly afterwards. The outcomes of the input sessions and input surveys have guided the board throughout this selection process, and the board has been and continues to work diligently to identify an exceptional superintendent who will be proud to lead our schools and our learning community. And I wanted to highlight 2 upcoming school events this evening. First, on Thursday, October 17th, from 7 to 8:30 at Cuccinella, they'll host a parent event developing the whole child in a digital age. This was also emailed out to the district on September 17th. But just to reiterate and recap, technology offers many benefits to society, and its prevalence will only increase in the future. But when it comes to our children, finding a healthy balance is essential. In this session, we will explore ways families can support the balanced development of our young children and adolescents in a digital age. Please bring your questions along and join us for an interactive evening of learning and discussion. And the presenters will be Mary Beth Kopax, Denise Scarpin, Debbie Russo, and Carolee Gately. And second, on Tuesday, November 5th, from 2:30 to 3:30, the Washington Township School CPAG will host Game Time, which is a meetup at the Washington Township Public Library. This group will provide many games, but feel free to bring your own. This program is primarily designed for elementary school students, however, all ages are welcome. And please visit our website for registration, which closes on November 4th. And that's all I have for now.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to begin by reporting on our harassment, intimidation, and bullying information. Under the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights Act, I'm required to report on our self-assessment scores, showing HIB information for last school year. That's for the 2023-2024 school year. We must score ourselves on items such as HIB training, our board policies, our HIB reports, HIB personnel, our reporting procedures, and our anti-HIB initiatives across the district. Out of a maximum score of 78, we scored quite well at each of our schools. Cuccinella scored a 63, Blacktown Cosman a 66, Old Farmers a 76, and Long Valley Middle School a 65, and we averaged as a district 86%. And we'll be sending this information to the New Jersey Department of Education by October 30th. That's our required date where we have to report our self-assessment. Next, I'll report on our HIB numbers for this month. There were 4 total investigations, 3 were unfounded, and 1 was founded. So at Cuccinella, 1 was reported but was unfounded. At Flocktown Cosman, 3 were reported and only 1 was founded. And there were 0 reports at Old Farmers and 0 reports at Long Valley Middle School. Moving on, I'd like to celebrate that October is filled with events across our schools supporting Respect Month and the tenets of cooperation, assertiveness, responsibility, empathy, kindness, and self-control, and highlighting the importance of being a good friend, a role model, and an upstander. Parents will notice the many learning and team-building events that are taking place in each of the schools across the month. As you know, October 14th is Columbus Day and Indigenous Peoples Day. Students are off from school on that date, but staff members will be engaging in professional learning throughout the day. I'd like to thank our directors, our administrators, and staff members for fostering the learning activities that will be taking place in each of the schools. Staff development sessions include dyslexia training, utilizing data to inform instruction, crisis prevention training, CPR training, and vertical articulation, just to name a few. At the end of September, a district-wide assessment calendar was sent out to all families from Mrs. Russo. She's our Director of Curriculum and Instruction. The calendar lets families know about specific dates of administration, along with descriptions of the planned district assessments that your child or children will experience during the school year. I just wanted to be sure that everyone was aware of the notification that went out and of these important dates. And finally, I want to wish everyone a happy, healthy fall, and that concludes my superintendent's report.
Thank you. Moving on to correspondence. This month we have correspondence from A. Wright, D. Gould, L. Palico, and M. Bratton. And committee reports. Do we have a committee report for education?
We do. Good evening. We met on Tuesday, October 1st at 1 p.m. In attendance was myself, Carmine Capagrosso, Lindsay Sushi. Also in attendance was Mary Beth Lopez, Debbie Russo, and Carol Conicelli. Welcome and celebrations. Members celebrated no injuries to families or friends after Hurricane Helene. Number 2, physical education at Long Valley Middle School. Basically on the changing, there is no policy for changing. It's a practice. And, where you change into athletic wear. And so far, this practice was actually handed over to the governance committee for further discussion, and I think we're going to have something a little bit later, maybe next month, that will come out regarding this. Gifted and talented programs, mandates versus standards. Know and apply grade level phonics and word analysis skills in decoding and encoding words. Demonstrate basic knowledge of one-to-one letter-sound correspondence by producing many of the most frequently used sounds on each consonant. Associate the long and short sounds with the common spelling graphemes for the 5 major vowels. Mrs. Lopez discussed the difference between state mandates and state standards. She noted that there are no gifted and talented standards, only mandates. The mandates are the laws that must be followed regarding the programming. B, discussion included how students are identified in grades pre-K through 8 and various programs that are offered at each level. Number 1, it was noted that the district identification process includes multiple measures. Number 2, every district student is measured in phase. Twice exceptional students, multi-language learners, and students with IEPs can qualify. And under that, sample items for the ID process include COGAT, MAP, writing prompts, and NJSLA scores. Number 2, a member asked why parents don't have access to these results. Mrs. Russo commented that phase 1 is an internal process. Phase 2 is where the results are shared with parents regarding qualifying. Letter C, phase 2 is a deeper collection of data including parents and teachers, interviews, and recommendations, SAGES and Torrance testing. Number 1, under C, it was noted that the district's identification process is very good. The NJDOE used it as a model. Number 2, once a child qualifies, they stay in the program in subsequent years. D, Mrs. Russo discussed the K-2 magnet program. The gifted teachers will go into the classrooms and teach lessons. This tends to bring students, quote, forward with behaviors of possible giftedness. STEM initiatives that will provide further enrichment opportunities for all students. And under that, number 1, the 2 teachers that are currently teaching are doing an amazing job at capturing at Long Valley Middle School for at least 15 minutes a day outside of gym class. This is for the 7th and 8th grade. I believe the 6th grade already does go out. If not, they will be included. And B, a member asked about cursive writing in 3rd grade. It was noted that it is part of the language arts curriculum. C, a member discussed the additional $9,200 award money from the State of New Jersey's High Impact Tutoring Grant. Mrs. Russo explained that the funds will be used for the before-after school program at the school who did not qualify for Title I funds. Thank you.
Thank you. And Finance and Facilities Committee?
Finance and Facility Committee met September 30th. In attendance were Lindsay, Jess, John, Mary Beth, Katie, Stephanie, and myself. First, the committee received updates on the various referendum projects ongoing. The paving is substantially complete at Cuccinella and Old Farmers Road School, and the contractor has started working on the punch list items, including a very extensive survey of the heights of all the paved areas. The LVMS and Flocktown Cosman parking lot has a tentative out-to-bid date of next month. And the Flocktown Cosman roof replacement project, we anticipate the substantial completion any day now, mid-October. The committee next reviewed the agenda items on tonight's agenda for finance. First is number 8, the additional high-impact tutoring funds that Cindy just mentioned in her Education Committee report. The next was number 15 on tonight's agenda, bus lease financing. We're leasing 4 54-passenger school buses and 3 school vans, a 5-year term of 3.69%. The last item was number 13 on tonight's agenda, the Alamucci Special Education Student Out-of-District Placement at Old Farmers Road School. The committee next reviewed a proposal from our architectural firm of record on our long-range facilities plan. The committee asked our business administrator to go back to the architects to seek a revised proposal that is more in line with the informational needs of the district. Next, we reviewed the progress of the 23-24 audit. The auditors finished field work the week of 9/20. The audit will be presented to the board at next month's regular meeting. And during the exit conference with the auditors, there were no recommendations found for the 23-24 school year. So congratulations to Katie and her entire team for that feat. No small accomplishment, having no findings. Next, we reviewed item number 17 on tonight's agenda, the Class 3 contract. This is the most recent revision with our board attorney's comments on the Class 3 contract with the township. So subject to approval tonight, the Washington Township Police Department can begin the hiring process. We also had a discussion about the possibility of adding an assistant nurse at Cuccinella. We brainstormed various ideas, everything from an intern to cover the rest of the school year, as well as various part-time options. I believe that announcement has gone out, and we've had some responses already, so that's some good news for additional support there. Then the committee discussed STEM versus STEAM. I had a conversation with our STEM coordinator, Dave Jones, on the differences beyond just the obvious addition of the letter A to the acronym. But in a nutshell, STEM would be focused on just the science and technology piece of it for science, and STEAM would be an incorporation of the problem-solving methodology into all areas of the curriculum. Obviously, that has a more substantial resource requirement, but it sounds like that is something the district should commit to in the future, especially with the new STEM, or should I say STEAM areas being built in each of the schools as part of the referendum projects. Finally, the last thing the committee discussed was the permanent superintendent salary. We took a look at average salaries in Morris County for K to 8, as well as some high school districts, as well as inflation-adjusted salary data from our previous superintendent, to come up with a range as the superintendent search progresses. So subject to questions, that is the Finance and Facilities Committee report.
Thank you. And then Communication and Governance Committee. Do we have anybody to move that or comment on it?
Comment off the cuff. I don't have minutes in front of me, but the Communication and Governance Committee discussed the gym clothes changing issue that Cindy brought up in her education report, as well as the gifted and talented, or talented and gifted issue that, again, Cindy brought up in her report. We also wanted to get, we requested information from those departments through our superintendent to make a more informed decision on what potential policy options might look like in the future. So we've received some of that, and some of it is yet to be collected and disseminated to the Communications Committee. That was it. Did I miss anything? Okay.
All right.
I guess that's it.
Thank you. And we did not have personnel, is that correct? No personnel committee? Okay. So moving on to public comment on agenda items. If anybody has public comment on agenda items, please approach the microphone, state your name, address, and you'll have 3 minutes to provide any comment. All right, moving on to approval of minutes. I'll go through these one by one this time. I believe we did have some absences, so there may be some abstentions. So first, can I get a motion to approve the September 7th regular and executive session meeting minutes?
Move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Okay, motion to approve the September 10th regular meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Okay, September 18th, regular and executive session meeting minutes.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions?
I abstain.
September 19th, regular and executive session meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Okay, motion to approve October 1st, regular and executive session meeting minutes.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions? October 2nd, regular and executive session meeting minutes.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Okay. Next, can I have somebody move the education?
Sure. I'd like to move numbers 1 through 6.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, roll call.
Mrs. DeSico?
Yes.
Mrs. Ruggiero?
Yes.
Mr. Capagrosso?
Yes.
Mrs. Stucci? Yes. Mr. Holly?
Yes.
Mr. Waskis?
Yes.
Mrs. Vieira?
Yes.
Mr. Oldmixon?
Yes. Next, can I have somebody please move finance?
Finance would like to move item number 7 on tonight's agenda, a motion to accept with gratitude the following contributions: $250 from the LVMS PTA to be used at the LVMS for a teacher grant, and $128.69 from Life Touch to be used at the Flocktown Cosman School for educational programs.
Second.
Thanks. Any discussion on those? Roll call.
Mrs. DeSico?
Abstention on 7A, yes to 7B.
Mrs. Ruggiero?
Yes.
Mr. Capagrosso?
Yes.
Mrs. Stucci?
Yes.
Mr. Holly?
Yes.
Mr. Waskis?
Yes.
Mrs. Vieira?
Yes.
Mr. Oldmixon?
Yes.
Finance would like to move items 8 through 20 on tonight's agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. DeSico?
Yes.
Mrs. Ruggiero?
Yes.
Mr. Capagrosso?
Yes.
Mrs. Stucci?
Yes.
Mr. Holly?
Yes.
Mr. Waskis?
Yes.
Mrs. Viera?
Yes.
Mr. Oldmixon?
Yes. Okay, moving on to personnel. Can I have somebody please move personnel?
Personnel would like to move item number 21 on the agenda. Motion to accept with regret the following retirements. Donna Peterson, teacher of special ed, Long Valley Middle School, effective January 1, 2025, after 20 years of service in the district.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. DeSico?
Yes.
Mrs. Ruggiero?
Yes.
Mr. Capagrosa?
Yes.
Mrs. Succi?
Yes.
Mr. Holly?
Yes.
Mr. Waskis?
Yes.
Mrs. Viera?
Yes.
Mr. Oldmixon?
Yes.
Personnel would like to move items 22 to 35 on the agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. DeSico?
Yes.
Mrs. Ruggiero?
Yes.
Mr. Capagrosa?
Yes.
Mrs. Succi?
Yes.
Mr. Holly?
Yes.
Mr. Waskis?
Yes.
Mrs. Viera?
Yes.
Mr. Oldmixon?
Yes. Okay, and lastly, under policy, I'd like to make a motion to read for the first time the following policies, all of them listed under agenda item number 36. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. DeSico?
Yes.
Mrs. Ruggiero?
Yes.
Mr. Capagrosa?
Yes.
Mrs. Succi?
Yes.
Mr. Holly?
No.
Mr. Waskis?
Yes.
Mrs. Viera?
Yes.
Mr. Oldmixon?
Yes. And under unfinished business, we have another item, motion to approve the draft of the strategic plan as presented. Can I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Just wanted to say one thing. I believe this is the first read. Mary Beth had sent this out to us. I believe it was last week. So again, it's basically the plan to implement our goals. But I just urge everybody to also reread and make any comments as necessary before the next meeting. So with that, any other discussion on that? Roll call?
Mrs. DeSico?
Yes.
Mrs. Ruggiero?
Yes.
Mr. Capagrosa?
Yes.
Mrs. Succi?
Yes.
Mr. Holly?
Yes.
Mr. Waskis?
Yes.
Mrs. Viera? Yes. Mr. Oldmixon?
Yes. Is there any other unfinished business?
I have some unfinished business. It's just a basic question for the board attorney. Are board members allowed to accept gifts from the candidates for the superintendent position during the hiring process?
Mr. Holly, I just want to make sure I understand your question correctly. Is the question whether board members may accept gifts?
Yeah, I can repeat it, sir. It's are board members allowed to accept gifts from the candidates for the superintendent position during the hiring process?
Board members are not permitted to accept any gifts that would in any way be interpreted as influencing a decision that they may make with regard to an action coming before the board.
Why is that?
Because it is prohibited by the School Ethics Act. I mean, that's the obvious answer to your question, but
Right. Are there any caveats to that? I mean, if, say, a candidate were to take a board member out to lunch or just gave them a gift of whatever, and there's no exceptions to that. That's clear.
Well, I think there's a difference between going out to lunch and accepting a gift or a gratuity. I mean, as each one of these cases is going to be fact sensitive. I mean, I can tell you that when you ask me the general question whether a board member should accept a gift that could in any way influence his or her decision with regard to a matter coming before the board, I can answer that unequivocally. Mm-hmm. But any other the set of circumstances, Mr. Holly, I would have to know the particular circumstances of that case.
Okay.
Is there any other unfinished business? Okay. Moving on to new business. Does anybody have any new business? All right, moving on to public comment. This is public comment on all items. Please approach the microphone and state your name, address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Good evening. I'm here tonight once again to advocate for my family and the fact that we are owed approximately $2,200 in aid in lieu payment for our children attending private school in 23-24. Back in June 23, I appropriately filled out the necessary non-public school transportation applications for both children. This is not disputed by the district. So they were in fact properly notified of this financial responsibility. According to New Jersey Administrative Code, Washington Township Schools had the responsibility to notify us that we had to fill out a transportation payment voucher. This responsibility was not fulfilled because we never received any such notification and had no idea we had another step in the process. I have record that both of my children were on the January and May transportation summary forms, which are required to be filled out by the non-public school. These forms certify that both of my kids were in attendance at the non-public school for their respective periods of time. Sadly, not one single person in the business office cared to reach out and ask about the payment vouchers. Instead, they just bypassed my family as they were cutting checks for the other families. When I inquired about the missing payments from Washington Township, this past July, I was told it was too late to get aid in lieu as it was the new fiscal year. The problem with this statement is it's not too late. The district does have the ability to acknowledge their mistake and pay my family out of this year's budget. After the last board meeting, I opened the letter from the auditor, which Board Member Waskis referenced as specifically stating, quote, that we shouldn't take this course of action proposed, and the letter from the attorney also supporting that, quote. I also requested the district correspondence to the auditor and attorney specifically pertaining to this issue. There was never a letter from the attorney. The letter from Mr. Riso to the auditor reads, "Hi, Bud and Brian. I was wondering if I could get you to help with something. We have a parent that missed the deadline for returning the paperwork to get his aid in lieu payment for 23-24. I told him it was too late, but he escalated the situation to the superintendent, the board president, and another board member. I explained to him the 23-24 account year is closed and we cannot issue payment for anything in 23-24, blah, blah, blah."
30 seconds.
Oh, would you be able to write me an email or letter with the same opinion? Their response, "I hope you are doing well. You are correct. In order for aid in lieu expense to be charged, it would have to be encumbered or included as an accounts payable. Charging expenses other than the current year's budget expenses to the 24-25 year would make you susceptible to a finding during the audit process."
Hey, Joe, that's 3 minutes.
All right, I'm going to ask for more time when everyone's done.
Thank you. Anybody else for public comment? All right. Traditionally, we have everybody go up once, and if there's nobody else, yeah, well, you can come up then.
Step stool or ladder. Melanie Bratton, West Valley Brook Road. On behalf of the Long Valley Middle School PTA, I just wanted to thank the board. I sent a very last minute desperate plea for some attendance for one of our parent nights, and 2 members were able to rearrange their schedules last minute and show up. And it does mean a lot to us because we're really trying hard to strengthen the parent community. So thank you to Lindsay Succi and Rob Waskis for taking the time, and to all of you for your extra efforts in this superintendent search. Your efforts are appreciated. So.
Thank you. Is there anybody else for public comment? All right. Jeff, you want to come back up and finish?
Thanks. So that was the letter from Mr. Riso requesting a specific read of a letter from the auditor. The bottom line is our district administration has the ability to pay my family what we are owed. However, in order to do that, they would need to admit that a mistake was made on their part and risk a possible minor slap in the wrist called a finding, which we know they haven't had a single one this past audit, which is phenomenal. Sadly, the priority of this district is to keep $2,200 out of the pockets of a resident family after we did everything we were informed we had to do. I would like another response either now or via email tomorrow, whether the district is going to do the right thing or not, so that I can take the next appropriate step in this process. And then, on a sort of side note, I'm not sure who else has noticed this, but we continue to see either partial truths or downright dishonesty by members of the board or the administration. There was never a letter from the attorney regarding my family's situation in which Board Member Waskis led the other board members and the public to believe. We also have the partial truth Mr. Riso told to the auditor in order to get the letter written in the way she wanted. I have a hard time believing an auditor would make it a finding if they knew the exact details of what was going on. Not to mention that we were made to believe by Board Member Waskis last meeting that the reason the Cuccinella parking lot wasn't completed before the start of the school year was due to the unseasonable amount of rain we received over the course of the summer. Interestingly, the average rainfall of the last 6 summers, this past summer was below that, so I'm not sure how that has anything to do with it. So it's time that we are honest with ourselves and the public around here. Thanks.
Thank you.
Are we allowed to have a discussion now about public comment or no? Is that allowed?
I'll leave it to, does anybody else, do you have any comments to address this, Mary Beth, or? Okay. Feel free to make a comment if you like.
I just don't understand why it's so difficult to pay Joe the aid in lieu money that he's come here, it's obvious. I haven't heard anyone dispute the fact that he's owed this money. Jen Ryan isn't here today, but she shared an experience that was identical to Joe's. It's a 2-part process. You have to file the initial paperwork, and then there's a third-party administrator that sends you another set of paperwork. And if you don't receive that paperwork, which Joe didn't, and Jen also did not, it sounded like last time Jen mentioned this, that she just happened to catch it before the arbitrary deadline, and it worked out in her favor. But Joe didn't catch it by that whatever deadline, and he still owed that money. I just don't understand. I understand that we don't want to have a finding on the audit, but someone correct me if I'm wrong. The finding doesn't cost us money, right? It's just, and this is a question I'm asking. I'm not sure who I'm even asking this question to, but the finding itself doesn't cost us money. Correct? We're not going to be penalized if there's a finding on our audit. We just owe him this money, and he should be paid. And I just don't understand what the holdup is. If it turned, and this is a question maybe for Katie or whoever, but if it turned out, and I know it's not the case at the moment, but if it turned out that the third-party administrator admitted fault and just said, you know what, labor strike, power outage, whatever the reason was, that form was never sent to Joe, would that be, like, what is the thing, the hurdle preventing him from receiving money that I think everyone agrees that he is entitled to?
Mr. Fogel, if you don't mind, could you clarify how the district would be impacted, to answer John's question, if there was a finding from the auditors?
There would be no financial penalty if there was an adverse finding, but you would be required to approve a corrective action plan going into the next audit year. But what I'm not certain of in this case is whether or not there was a mistake made by the administration that would warrant the payment of an amount that should have been paid during 2023, 2024 in this fiscal year. So I've heard that certainly from the gentleman at the podium, and I've heard it restated by Mr. Holly, but I'm just not certain that there was a mistake made by a member of our administration. That certainly would be something I would take into consideration before I'd give the board an opinion.
And just for the record, I'm not saying that a mistake was made either. I'm just saying it's as simple as he never received the paperwork and couldn't file paperwork he never received. I'm not blaming anyone from our administration whatsoever. I'm just saying it also happened to another board member, coincidentally. Jen Rhines, who's not here tonight, spoke up, and the same exact situation happened to her. So I'm not saying that anyone on our side made a mistake. I'm just saying it's clear that this gentleman is owed that money, and I think we should do right by him and pay it.
I mean, aid in lieu is something that was new to me from this whole event. You know, I had communicated with Katie as well, and I said, I don't really know. Let's ask the auditor. All I got, you know, we had gotten back, you know, we have a difference of opinion on whether the auditor was told the whole story or not, but, you know, to me, it seemed like it was. But this is all new to me. I don't know the ins and outs of aid in lieu payments, so I'll leave it to anybody else who wants to comment. But otherwise, we can maybe formulate a response back and get back to Mr. Kolodarski tomorrow. But again, I'll leave it open to anybody else who has any
So,
comments
Mr. President, what I'd like to suggest is that I take a look at this, because there's an entire regulatory scheme for the payment of aid in lieu of, and it contains the filing requirements, the timelines. I just want to take a look at that, speak with the business administrator, and I'll certainly give an opinion to the superintendent after I've had an opportunity to review it.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you. Okay. And thank you, Mrs. Bratton, for your comments as well. So moving on to district distinctions. I have a few to read tonight. Across the elementary schools, as Mrs. Kopax had mentioned, staff members and students are celebrating Respect Weeks. At Old Farmers Road School, Mrs. Rojas, the school social worker and counselor, has prepared a month's worth of activities for October that will encourage our children to focus on the importance of respect for themselves and others. The theme is Count on Me, and Spirit Days are scheduled throughout the month. Old Farmers has also partnered with the Long Valley Junior Women's Club to unleash a new therapy dog program for the school. Therapy dogs provide comfort, connection, and smiles. These visits will promote emotional well-being and social skills. Interactions with therapy dogs can reduce stress and anxiety for children. Bucket Filling Character Education Initiative has been successfully rolled out at Cuccinella. This program encourages students to demonstrate our core values of being responsible, respectful, safe, persistent, and kind. Students are actively participating in filling each other's buckets by demonstrating acts of kindness, creating a more inclusive and positive atmosphere for everyone. Thank you to all our students and staff for embracing this initiative and making Cuccinella a great place to learn. Continuing with the bucket filling, Cuccinella was thrilled to host their first Party with the Principals as a special reward for the bucket fillers of the month. Each week, students who earn a bucket filling ticket for their kindness and positive behavior are entered into a drawing, with one student being highlighted as our bucket filler of the week. At the end of the month, these outstanding role models are invited to celebrate by joining other selected students and the principals for lunch, where they enjoy games, laughter, and well-deserved break from their incredible efforts. At Flocktown, lessons across the month will include themes such as Stomp Out Bullying, Help Everyone Respect Others, Respect Your Teammates, and Showing Respect is No Sweat. Students will be watching age-appropriate clips and engaging in discussions about bullying, respect, bullying prevention, and being an upstander. In October, Flocktown Cosman Schools will also be celebrating School Safety Week and will engage in activities including We Are All Tied Together by Kindness, Let's Practice an Act of Kindness Today, Wolves Work Together to Be Safe, and We Are Part of the Pack, Support Safety on the Bus. And at LVMS, sports and clubs are underway for the 24-25 school year. The school has approximately 342 participating students, whereas last year at the same time there were 337. Participation is up despite a drop in overall enrollment, and it's exciting to see the LVMS Panthers be so engaged in the school activities. The LVMS community is excited to vote and announce LVMS Student Council leadership in the coming weeks. Everyone eagerly anticipates hearing new ideas from the student leaders. They are excited again to participate in the LVMS Pink Out on October 17th. This event, initiated by a former student in 2016, has remained a tradition at LVMS ever since. Students should wear pink in preparation for the school picture in the backfield to raise awareness for breast cancer. The rain date is scheduled for October 18th. And with that, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting. All in favor?